Just go down the line and kind of state your name and talk about what your current role is.
Ed Kulzer. I'm the senior editor of Sesame Street.
I'm Rosanne Limoncelli. I'm the Senior Director of Film Technologies at Tisch School of the Arts at NYU and the Martin Scorsese Center.
Hi, I'm Mariana Díaz-Wionczek. I have three things. I'm a principal in my consulting company for children's media products. I'm a professor at NYU. I teach a graduate class there, and I'm executive producer for an animated series for preschoolers that's called Rosie's Rules. That's for PBS.
We love Rosie's Rules.
Hi, my name's Ben Lehman. I'm an independent producer, director, and writer, and have mostly worked in the kid space. Currently working on a show for Mo Willems called The Pigeon Explains.
Hey, my name's Dustin Ward, and I'm a cinematographer. And yeah, I just, I would love to work on any of these people's projects.
You work on amazing projects yourself.
Thank you.
I'm Nick Huston. I'm the sales manager at Gotham Sound. I'm also a sound mixer for fabulous reality television programs like The Real Housewives.
Oh, cool. My mother would love you, yeah. I'm Gabrielle Howard, and I'm the creative development manager at Fred Rogers Productions.
Hello, I am Ruth Fernandez, and I am a member of Union Local 798, hair and makeup here in New York.
She's been doing hair and makeup professionally for television sets, film sets.
20 years.
Red carpet events for
Yeah.
20 years.
Thanks for coming.
Can you talk a little about what you do on a daily basis in your current job?
Well, I just wrapped a movie yesterday, actually. I wake up very early. Very early, usually. We have hair and makeup usually has a 2-hour pre-call to get the actors ready. And my day starts. I never know when it ends. It could be an 8-hour, 10-hour, 12-hour. But I love what I do. Truly love what I do. I get to travel. I get to meet interesting people. I get to be part of the storytelling with creating the makeup looks. And yeah, that's what I do.
Cool. Wow. I do a lot of things because we're a small company, but basically, I'm sort of I'm the gatekeeper for people who pitch to our company. So if you have a concept that you want to pitch, you go through me first. And I hear tons of pitches in a week. I think I don't know, I guess I do about 15 a week, roughly, and that's low. That's low. But and I'm also reading material that's been sent to us, but I take pictures on behalf of the company, and if I think it's something that's worth our time, I share it with our Chief Creative Officer, Ellen Doherty. She and I are the only two in the development department, and we have conversations and decide whether or not to move forward. I guess also what I do is a ton of research for the company. I'm constantly reading books, YA novels, middle school picture books, looking for concepts for the company, going to films, reading the newspaper, which I've always done, but just combing through things, and also working with Ellen on things that we currently have in development, finding writers for show Bibles, pilot scripts, giving notes, finding animation artists to do concept art, character designs, all of that. And oh, did you? It's strange, in my career I didn't work in a lot of animation, but now I'm deep in it, so yeah.
It's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
We had a professional, like a selected animation, but that was mostly like CalArts, SBA, Pratt, and then we had a whole selection from Korea that found us. So
Oh, really?
yeah, amazing.
Well, I'm still learning about animation because, I started my career at Sesame Street, and as I went along working in development, everything was live action, maybe with the exception of like 1 or 2 properties that I worked on. But now I'm really deep in it, so.
Well, now there's such crossover.
There's a lot of crossover, yeah. I'm more of a live action person, you know, I guess because I grew up that way watching, I was attracted to that, but yeah.
What do you do every day?
Sure. So, so at Gotham, we sell, rent, and service sound and communication equipment for film and television. And as the sales manager, you would think that I'm like, you know, pushing wireless microphones and things like that. But to me, my job is a lot more about customer service and education. So I get a lot of people that will call me saying, you know, I have this project, I have this amount of money, how do I accomplish what do I want to accomplish? And then my job is to, you know, not just kind of tell them how to do it, because how I would do it may be different than what makes sense to them, but to educate them on what's possible in terms of equipment, and help them you know, choose their own workflow that makes sense for them. In addition to that, we produce a lot of content for YouTube that is educational content, you know, not just discussing equipment, but also highlighting sound in the industry. You know, we've done things where we talk to the sound mixer from Miss Maisel or from Ripley. Yeah, so we do a lot of stuff to try to.
Nick's a great host in the series.
I host YouTube videos.
Oh, do you?
I do, yeah. Yeah, I interviewed Nina at our event a couple of weeks ago. And so for us, it's about you know, tying the industry together. You know, sound mixers by nature work in very small teams. You know, generally teams of 3 or less. And so, but there's, you know, hundreds of us in this city alone, and trying to tie the community together and educate people about what other professionals are doing. It's what we're about. So that's, yeah, that's it.
Yeah, as a cinematographer, I'm really just the right hand of the director. A lot of that is developing the look of the film and helping to communicate the emotion of the characters. And like right now, I'm working with the director on shot listing and just going through every single scenario, and it's a lot less about like actually listing it out in this moment, and it's more just about understanding the characters through and through, like why they do what they do, why they are where they are, just like everything that is that character. We're really just trying to drill down like who they are at their core, and then beyond the story elements, when it gets more into the technical things, I'm responsible for pulling crew together a lot of the time. I'm responsible for testing different cameras, different lenses, finding the look again for the film. And a lot of the time people think of the cinematographer as like the cameraman, but it's like a lot of the time it's actually a management position where I'm managing teams and making sure everyone's communicating well, and a lot of that is the lighting and grip teams. And yeah, sometimes it feels like a construction site where you're just there and you somehow just like forget that you're like telling a story at some point, and you're just like so focused on building everything that needs to be built and communicating all of those details. And then I think over time, once you do it enough, you start to be able to remember the story while you're doing those things. And
on opening night, one of the DPs that I think you know, Cameron,
yeah,
his film was showing, and our step and repeat fell down, and then he was like jerry rigging a whole like
yeah.
step and repeat whole system. Like it was, but he was like, I can't not do this. That's like
Yeah. Yeah. So a lot of the time it's just problem solving and recognizing that the sun's not going to stay in the spot you want it to all day, and therefore you have to block out the sun, and then you have to build your own system to be able to light for the entire day, and block the characters to be in good light at all times. And yeah, there's a lot to it I could go on all day about. But yeah.
Thanks. Gosh, what do I do every day? So
Pick one thing. I know
yeah. No, I'll give you this week because sometimes I'm working from home, sometimes I'm working on a set. But this week I got to direct a live stage show for Sesame Street. They do this yearly gala, and they have this big stage show. So I'd been prepping for weeks and creating a rundown, and very different from directing a narrative thing where you're really trying to interpret the story. Here you're trying to just get everybody working in tandem and preparing your stage managers to have everybody on and preparing your camera team to know who's getting what shot. So Tuesday morning I went in, walked through the whole show with my stage management team, walked through all of the graphics and videos that would play with the technical director and the graphics team. And then on Wednesday, the day of the show, because this is not, like an awards show, you would probably get to rehearse over the span of a week leading into the event. Here, we get the people the day of. And so we had, our host was Leslie Odom Jr. from Hamilton. And our musical guest was Andra Day, who portrayed Billie Holiday in the U.S. versus Billie Holiday. And then we were honoring Shonda Rhimes, and Oprah Winfrey was there to give her this award. And then on top of that, John Oliver comes in and does this live auction in the room. So we rehearse everything in tiny little pieces. It's like John Oliver's coming at 5 p.m. and you have 20 minutes. So you work through everything with the Muppets, with the talent. You get one shot at it, and then 7 p.m. curtains, you run through the whole show. And basically, I'm in a little control room on a headset talking to the camera team and just calling cameras, and the TD's taking, and we do essentially a live show that happens in real time. It was super fun. It was very stressful, but it was really fun.
That's a hard one to follow, but okay. So I'm EP on an animated series for preschoolers, Rosie's Rules, I mentioned before, and I work from home. The studio that produces it is called 9 Story Media, and the actual animation studio is called Brown Bag, and they're in Toronto. So I work mostly remotely from home here in Astoria. I'm a proud Astorian. And woohoo, right. I'm very involved with creative for the most part. So that takes about 30% of my time. And what am I doing? So we're actually generating story ideas with the head writer and creator of the show. So we're generating story ideas. We also work very closely with the director of research and education, who gives us the education input for the series. So she makes sure that we're meeting our educational goals as we generate the story idea. So that's one thing I do. And I review a lot of production materials just to give notes on scripts, for instance, on multiple stages of scripts. I focus a lot of my attention in the storytelling, but also this season in particular, I'm obsessed with the dynamic between the characters, and I want them to have a lovely, just to be very fun in the way that they relate to each other. It's a little girl, and she has this family and group of friends, and I'm just very focused on that, because you can make a lot out of a little moment with those characters and make it really funny and interesting, and develop your characters even just by adding, a funny way of saying something, for instance. So I'm very focused on that this season, but I'm also looking at the cultural content, because it's a show that has a very strong cultural component with a girl that's Mexican American like I am, and I'm trying and pushing for authenticity in the way that we represent diversity on screen. That's sort of the overall umbrella of what I do, or what I've been doing for the last 5 years, is pushing for diverse representation on screen, and everything that's involved in that, which happens not only on screen but behind the scenes, behind screen as well. And probably I'll get to talk a little bit more about that. So then I'm sending notes on scripts. I'm reviewing fun packs and designs. This week, I'm going to follow your example. I talked to a cultural consultant because we're developing a character, and the same way that we develop Latino characters in the series, in which case I'm sort of the go-to person for a Latino character. This character is not Latino, so we found a consultant that would look at the character design and the character description, as well as a talent that will voice the character, so that we make sure that there's consistency between the voice actor and the character design and background, so that it's authentic. So I met with that person and we discussed and approved the casting of the character. And so that's what I do as executive producer for that show. Then I approve fun packs. We just started with that for season 2. And then I'm also developing, so that's for Rosie's Rules, but that takes about 30-40% of my time. The rest of the time I'm developing business. So I'm talking to new clients like Fred Rogers Productions, for instance, and I am working in development with them if they have a specific question, usually that has to do with what I mentioned before with diversity. I team up with them and I help them out to achieve their intention of diversity. And that's with Fred Rogers, but also with other companies, 9 Story. That's how I started there, with Nickelodeon and with other companies that I work with. Now I'm doing some work with Moonbug, etc. And the third component is my class. I've been teaching it for about 10 years. I designed that class that's called Psychological Influence of Children's Media, which I teach at NYU. It's a graduate seminar. And so in the fall, I'm either preparing, updating the materials, or teaching, or grading, or some associated activity. And with that, I'll give it to you.
Thank you. From NYU to NYU.
NYU to NYU.
Yes, I mean, mainly I'm an educator. I got my undergraduate degree in film and television, and then got my master's and PhD in education. I wanted to combine both of those things. I'm an artist. I make films. I write novels. I produce, and I used to act, not so much anymore. But my day-to-day job as the Senior Director of Film Technology is running a big team. And my team of 50 people supports the curriculum, the students and the faculty at NYU Tisch School of the Arts, Kanbar Institute, Film and TV, Martin Scorsese Center as well. And yes, it's too long. We train all of the people, lots of people that go into the industry and work for all these lovely people here. And my job on a day-to-day basis, I mean, and a perfect day, if everyone is doing an excellent job, I have an easy day and things are calm, but there's a lot of problem solving that goes on and a lot of planning for new projects. So for example, my areas include TV studios, sound stages, animation, production center, post-production center, classroom technology, and more recently this last year I put together the Martin Scorsese Virtual Production Center. We built new TV studios and stages out in Brooklyn, and we're doing virtual production. So this year I've been doing a lot of training on virtual production. We're just opening that center this summer with our new master's program that starts in September. And as a manager, as a supervisor of people, I help make sure everyone has what they need to do to be excellent at their jobs. So I think people tend to think, oh, big boss, they're the boss. But for me, that means I support the people that are on my team. Do they have what they need to get their jobs done? Do we have enough staff to get the jobs, to support the students and the faculty? Do we have the right technology? I'm always researching technology. Does everything revolve around story? Because that's what we do and that's our main goal. So making sure that we, are paying attention to our goals and all the way down to the nitty-gritty details. Everything is in place so that everybody can do what they need to do to help the students make their projects, realize their dreams, understand technology, understand story, graduate, and go out into the world.
As an editor of Sesame Street, ultimately, it's our charge to translate the hopes, dreams, and research that begins at the very start with the people in the rooms with the children coming up with curriculum for educational goals. It's our job as editors to ensure that that is executed and that it achieves results and is fun and entertaining to watch. We work with the writers, the producers, directors, animators, sound design, sound mixers, and we take the talents of everybody who was on set to provide us footage. We assemble it as best we can in order to make episodes to time, to ensure that they're fun and exciting and engaging, create the motion graphics and special effects, and assemble the episodes in a way that kids will watch and get things from. We succeed when the results come in. And we see that 2, 3, and 4-year-olds are learning. So it's not just that we win Emmys, woo, yay. It's if what we produce has the intended effect. And as an editor, we have, what impact we can at our stage in the game. Things have been shot, things have been written. But we get to contribute, and that is something really amazing. And it's a privilege and an honor to be a part of. And so we try to do our best to do that.
Also, it wouldn't get to where it gets without you.
I mean,
all those great pieces would kind of just sit there if you weren't putting them all together.
yeah, we are gatekeepers. Sometimes there are technical problems with the footage that we receive, and we have to fix that. Otherwise, it's not allowed to air.
Right.
When you're running out of time on set, people love to say, "We'll fix it."
Fix it in post.
Then Ed
Like that-
stays up all
Right.
night.
That's the worst line of this industry.
Oh God, I am the guy to do it because I'm often the guy who's most skilled in graphics. And we'll give it to Ed. In a tangible way, we are involved at the very beginning in pre-production when we're going through the scripts and everybody's plotting everything out and planning the shots. We get to be there to say, "Yo, I'd really like you to think about this because I'd really like to have an insert shot of the book there," or if you shoot it with a roving camera and you want me to track something along with that, it's going to cost us money and time. Could you please plant the camera on sticks?
Right.
Or could you please use a blue screen? Could we get this in the shot? And so we collaborate with pre-production. Sometimes during the shoots, they'll need a little rewrites, or we'll be there in the control room assembling the episodes as they shoot out of order, in order to be able to tell the floor, okay, we're running long. Right now the show is 10 minutes. We ultimately need it to be 8. And so perhaps we will catch a head in the shot, which is a big no-no for puppetry, and we will ask them to please do another take, or to give us something else just to have cover in case we need to go to a second angle. That's vital. It's vital that we're there on set to do that because we're helping ourselves out later.
And by the way, he keeps pointing at Ben because Ben was the showrunner of Sesame Street for a long time, though he didn't mention that.
And a director and a producer. Ben is my friend. Because having a good relationship, an editor having a good relationship with the director, with the people on the floor, and with producers makes our job so much easier. As an editor, you're a communicator. Because there are abstract ideas, there are reasons why you can't do something with 2 pieces of footage that are supposed to adjoin, and you have to be able to communicate the challenges and what it is possible and what is not possible. You have to speak the other people's language so that you don't spend 5 different revisions trying to relay one tiny little abstract concept.
So important.
That makes for a really good editor and a really good relationship in the editing experience.
Thank you. All of that. I remember when I was starting with the festival, we had like an editing project, and I was asking you for advice. Ed's a neighbor of mine, so I'm fortunate. And you said something about it's either time or money. What do you? I don't know if you have like that memorized, but it was the best phrase I've ever heard, and I've repeated it a lot, but of course I can't remember.
Oh yeah, it can be fast, it can be good, or it can be cheap. You get 2 of the 3.
Yes, that's the line. I love that line. Can you tell us a little about your career path and how you got to where you are today to inform our young people who might want to get to your position later in their lives, what they might do to get there?
Sure. Long story short, I was read to at night. And I developed a passion for story, and reading and imagination flourishing throughout my life led to a thirst for story arcs and character development. And watching movies and loving television makes you try to figure out how it makes you feel how you feel. How simple pace and shot choice affects you. And it makes you appreciate scenes and the quality of production. In other respects, I came to New York to become a visual artist in galleries, and learned instead the fine art of poverty, and picked up editing and motion graphics as a means to pay for my coffee and bagel per day. Post-graduation, I worked 10 million jobs making reels for directors on Mandy and Craigslist, moving up to doing short commercials and industrials at post-production facilities, to spending a year doing internal video at JP Morgan Chase down on Wall Street and spending time with the people at Occupy Wall Street on my lunch breaks. I was a colorist at a post-production facility, which was a lot of fun. And ultimately interviewed with Ben to join Sesame Street and in some way be an integral part of making impact that is far greater than myself. It's not the naive impact that I thought that I might have as a college artist, but just being a tiny little cog in that enormous machine of tremendous impact in the world. It's so humbling and wonderful. I don't know if that answers the question.
Of course that does. Do what you love. Do it with passion. That's
Yeah.
kind of.
Definitely. Why you get into something is important.
Yeah.
I went to film school and I wanted to be a filmmaker, and I am a filmmaker, but that's not always a job that pays the rent necessarily. I'm an artist. I don't want to do big commercial things. I honestly never really wanted to be in an industry that doesn't always put out things that, have a great impact, not counting the people in this room. But when I was finishing film school, I was also learning the fine art of poverty, and I was working as a student worker in our production center in the equipment room, actually learning how to repair cameras and lights, and a full-time job opened up, so I applied and I got the full-time job. And I loved being there with always with students and colleagues who were passionate about film and storytelling. I was still able to, write and make my films and do everything I wanted to do and collaborate with people. And but I'm also a big sort of organizer and film nerd. So I was, always the one sort of cleaning things up. And how about if we have this system? And wait, wouldn't it be better for everybody if we all followed sort of this procedure, and then it would be easier, and we'd have be able to do better, more things and better things. So as I, sort of organized everything as I was living along, I kept it promoted, and I loved working with people so that, when I had people that I was managing, like I said before, I wanted to support them, not just be their boss. So I think that had a decision we kept very also. And so doing projects, so I was going to say, hey, we want this new class for some of my students. So I said, I require teaching a curriculum experience. Let me work on that cylinder. So I helped develop that program. Another program, another program. That's what I love about my job is always there's a big difference. Technology is always changing. Someplace then it's something new. A new project comes up, I'm happy to jump in and figure out how we can do it and put together like our community on that stage. And that's just a program that I help design curriculum for. But I would say for young people, so did you have a background? How did you design curriculum for production? A lot of people. Well, it's filmmaking. It's just filmmaking. True, and it's filmmaking with extra technology.
And I will say, instead of saying fix it in post in virtual production, we say fix it in pre. Because it's all about pre-bid on mushrooms. So visualization is very important in virtual production. And I won't go on about that so much right now, but I do want to say that, for young people starting out, I think it's important to look for a company that makes the kinds of things that really inspire you. Instead of saying, "Oh, I want to make movies, I want to go to Hollywood." Well, do you be a part of that bunch of crappy movies? Sorry, mediocre TV shows, or you can get those shows. You can get those jobs with hard, freelance or full time, and there's plenty of jobs out there. We have streaming, we have 1,000 cable stations, and some movies coming out all the time. Except last year, where they kept starting. But I would say look for a company that really inspires you and try and get out of the ranks there. One reason why I kept staying with NYU and I worked there, and I've been there for 35 years, because I love education. I love the idea of helping people figure out what they want to do and get to do what they do. And unfortunately, when I was in school before NYU, but I had a lot of bad education experiences. I had a lot of bad teachers and a lot of bad administrators that I came up against. And I said to myself, I know that there's a fair way to do that. I know that you can be a good teacher and a good administrator, and you can help students instead of making them feel small or untalented. I believe you were talented, that could be made an opportunity. So I wanted to be an education, and I wanted to be a good educator so that I could be able to tap on the students. I teach filmmaking, I teach story writing, but that's passion of mine. But being the administrator to help a large group of students be able to find their way through is just as important to me. So, like background in the Lehman eclectic, I grew up in Mexico City. I came to New York to get a PhD in psychology, which I did. And then as I was a graduate student, I was also working with a market research firm that did a lot of work for media clients. And that's how I gained this really bloated at that time. And I was on maternity leave when my friend made me aware of an opening in the animated series that you perhaps know called Aureus, or he was in the research department. Perhaps now. Yeah. You never know. I used to always done for let's see if everybody knows. But anyway. So I joined the research department in Aureus and I stayed there for 12 years. My background was not in children's media. That hired, that was my foot on the door to the children's media industry, and I stayed there ever since. So I've been put it. So I think when it comes to sort of what I would tell young people has to do with being open to change, open to give it, and having others just open to diverse interest and see what happens in all that. But so then I stayed with Lauren's head of education and research for 12 years. We were doing a type of research that was key, and actually Sesame Street still does it, and it's called quality research, that you conduct research to inform the production of the series as the production is going along. So you need to read research, and that means it's going to see the kids where they are, which is why before the pandemic at their preschool. So we visited preschools in the tri-state area. We showed the product to the audience, or showed to about 100 kids before it came out on the air. So we were constantly feeding the production to the creative with information from kids. So I used to say that kids helped us produce the show because they were actually giving us all that input, and we were able to make the show just to best meet their needs, both of entertainment and in the kids shop. So we were testing on both of those components. And then eventually I also became a producer indoor, because I was there for a long time, and I was sort of reading all the scripts and looking at all the animatics and giving notes on everything. So I was also producer towards the end. And then when the production ended in 2016, I went through 2 years of darkness because it was difficult. I had a very specific set of skills that came from the Ready Explorer, they were applied to the Ready Explorer content, and all of a sudden was like, oh, what else do I want to help to? So it was difficult to find a job at that time. So the silver lining is that because of that hardship, I ended up starting a company to do what I knew how to do instead of trying to talk, in interviews, like job interviews, is like, oh, you're great at this and you're qualified that we have you. But you don't know these other things. So then instead of trying to meet all that, I said, let's just focus on what I'm an expert at. So then I started my own company, and people said, what is to start a company? So I can talk about that later. But I started my own company as a consultant focused mostly on research and content and how to develop content and help me mostly in development to create concepts that would be that would make sense. And then sometimes I stayed, if a show was picked up, then I would stay consulting after. And then slowly but steadily, I started doing less research and more consulting. That's just how it happened for me. I had many colleagues who are researchers, and now they're very self-sufficient because in the industry now research is farmed out. So the people that conduct research for companies like Manger, Sesame, they do have their internal research teams for the line. So then I started doing that, and slowly but steadily I started getting into the matters of representation, which I mentioned before, which is something that I was always interested in, even my own identity as I came to the United States and as a Latino of multicultural background, etc. So I was interested in that aspect of things, and particularly supported in a part of the workplace. That was just something that was part of my my way of living life professionally. So then I started getting calls for representation as right. So I started becoming more acquainted with the topics. I did my research, I did my reading. I drove on phone. Not everywhere. And then I started allocating for the representation. So on screen, how do you do it? Basically by bringing the voices that match the characters that you're developing, and by having human characters. And I speak a lot about that as people come to me for those services. Some of the folks here know me in that capacity. And then part of what I was saying to librarians when they wanted to be authentic and represent and care about diversity and inclusion, I said, you have to not only bring in these diverse voices, but you have to support them and grow them so that they can become leaders in your project. And that's a serious responsibility you have. And then I was saying, well, that as an advisor. And then I was involved in a couple of projects. Some of them were huge, and then I realized that I had the opportunity and the responsibility to also become leadership within the project. Because when you're an advisor, you leave notes, share the notes, and then the people, your client, reads them and either takes them or doesn't take them, but don't use them. And you have no authority over that whatsoever. So for the project of hers, who's in particular, is when I realized, like, well, she's Mexican American. I'm okay for these specific representations and everything. And I actually have to be in there. Like, I have to be producing that show to have the authority to make these things happen, so that you cannot, you cannot brush it off. So it has to happen that way. Is right. Tisch did everything. And they're like, oh yeah, that makes a little sense. I'm like, score. So that's how that happened, and that's how then again I pivoted from, first being like research educator person. I was also developing the curriculum and Dora and making sure you can implement it and all that. To then doing to now all of a sudden doing what I thought was important from within the production. I had that huge opportunity, and then with Astoria readings, I was invited to come back for education, and I already had this experience, so I said, actually, if I come back to this project, it has to be as well as users. I need to make sure these things happen. So, yes, that my advice, and how do I connect this to advice for the young people, is be open about all the opportunities. Don't stick to wait for the opportunities. You have to actually be proactively out there, looking for the opportunities. I mean, storing a lot of them to see which ones are. I told myself, like, you build a bridge, and then if you have it, you might be able to cross. If there's no bridge, there's no crossing. So build all those bridges, and I think we'll get to my mind about specific bodies. But yeah, be open and anything out there to us will. To would be have the power for it in that one.
Okay, my path. I started as a production assistant. That's pretty common. So after college, I was from Los Angeles, and so went to Los Angeles and worked as a production assistant, mostly on music videos, commercials, lots of independent films. And I got interested in camera work and became a camera assistant. So kudos to all the cinematographers. And so kind of had I was both a camera assistant and then also worked as an editor on the side. And I do think it's really great if your interest can bifurcate or trifurcate or whatever the next iteration of that is, that you have multiple things that you're interested in, because especially if you work as a freelancer, the work might dry up in one area, and it would be great if you could pivot to something else. So I've always done that for the most part, have multiple interests, and then I write as well as direct and produce. So I ended up moving to New York for a feature film that I was shooting, and it was like an 8-week shoot, and I moved here, which is just bananas. Don't do that. And so then became a camera assistant / operator / sometimes shooter in New York, and realized that I was kind of dissatisfied in my career. I had been a crew member for many years, and that's a very difficult lifestyle. I think Liz said, you don't always know when this day is going to end. You're not in charge of that. And so I kind of had a change of heart and started looking for works with companies specifically. And I was lucky to land at Sesame Workshop in the international department. They do a lot of international co-productions there. I had worked internationally. I grew up in France, so I was bilingual. And I ended up as an administrative assistant, which was a tough pivot, when you run a crew or been on a feature or bigger projects. But I think that's common in a lot of careers. And so I became an assistant to the person who oversaw the international co-productions. And lo and behold, that person became executive producer of Sesame Street and brought me over as a production assistant and then an associate producer. And I have worked basically at this point since season 34 of Sesame Street. They're now on season 55. On every season of Sesame Street, in one role or another, I eventually became executive producer there. My last role was head of live action for Sesame Workshop, the company that produces Sesame Street, but also does other series. And then a couple of years ago, during COVID, I kind of decided I wanted to work on new projects and other projects, but still stay connected to Sesame Street, because I think this was said on this side of the panel, but it did, once I got into kids media, I was like, oh, I have really worked on some projects where it's not that meaningful, and this really hit me. It's like, oh, there's so much heart and importance, and you're really trying to make a show that's to help kids get a leg up at class. And that really opened my eyes and made me see, it is really nice when because it's still work. You still, you show up at the office on Monday and you're pretty cranky, like everybody else. And so it is nice to know that you're actually working for a greater good than just, you still have to be the rat. Yeah. And so anyway, so a couple of years ago, I decided to go freelance and back to my independent roots. And so now I basically work on a couple of shows for PBS Kids. I'm still involved with Sesame Street as a director mostly. Sometimes it's a producer. And I'm also a freelance writer. And so, again, my advice is, come to these panels, meet people, follow your passion, but also don't get too narrowly defined, because the first thing that will happen as soon as you get a job in this industry, people will be like, you are that job exclusively. So it's really nice to broaden your spectrum and to if you like to write, you have to write. Nobody's gonna
give you a script because you said I want you to write it. You'll have to have written multiple scripts and shown them to people, like convince them to hire. So yeah, keep your options and your back of the line.
I love following that up because it just feels so relatable. I'm like, oh, I feel it all me. Yeah, I love the like not staying too narrow, because I struggled for a long time with the concept of like doing multiple things because I was like, I'm gonna be a jack of all trades. No one's really gonna see me a certain way. But like the reality is that like you need those things in order to like live through this freelance life and kind of be able to pivot whenever necessary. But I would say like my path through was just following my curiosity. That would be like the first thing that I would say is like, I think especially when you're younger, you have so much curiosity about so many things in the world. And so it's like following that curiosity is really important. And that's what I did. And to kind of go back to what I consider like the beginning for me was my family always went to church. They always brought me to church. And I was always hanging out around like the live camera area. They were like doing all the controls, and I just saw all the computers and like stuff. And I was like, how is all this working? And I think they just saw me like hanging around, and they were like, you want to press buttons? So like as a 12-year-old, I was just there like, and it was just very, very quickly that just became that I was doing that regularly for services, running the multiple cameras and doing them
As well.
It was a journey along. So maybe I should say, when I was 12, I started doing that, and I like shot one of my first like videos and edited it together, and I was like learning editing, and then when I was 14, 15, 16, I started going on trips with them to like Nicaragua, Guatemala, Brazil, to kind of like film documenting like them like building schools or bringing clean water or whatever the situation was. And then I would bring those things back and I would edit them. And it was kind of cool having this like live audience every time. I would always watch them watching what I made. And you would be able to kind of like see like what editing worked and what didn't. And that helped me understand like what I needed for an edit. And then that's what kind of like informed the way that I shot things, was kind of reverse engineering from editing. And from there, someone else joined the video team. We kind of became like a video team, and I was kind of running a department in that case. And then we created a band together. And then that kind of changed everything, because now I was not only doing the things at the church, but afterwards we were doing band practice, filming everything that we did. We started releasing weekly videos on YouTube, and then that like eventually became, we were like, we should actually script something and like create a web series like about our band and stuff. And that was before a web series, so I don't even think we called it a web series. We just were making a series of videos that were uploaded. Okay. And so, yeah, I was a drummer in that band. I would film him doing his part. He would film me doing my part, and we made this web series. We rented out a theater, and we sold tickets to it. And so, like, selling out that theater was like, I think, a huge moment in my life that I was like, wait, I can like make money doing this. You know, like it was $700 that we all split from like doing the entire thing. But that was like a lot of money to us. And so from there,
there was a YouTube show called Internet Icon at the time, and they were inviting people that had like been kind of recognized in YouTube, and we were all supposed to come together and see. It's kind of like a 48-hour film festival where we're all just like competing against each other.
I'm not that sure. Was that on your yet?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. She thinks the
And yeah, so we were competing on that, and it was actually like while we were all waiting in the waiting area that there was somebody that was kind of like sitting by himself, and I just went and talked to him. One of the best decisions of my life in that moment, because he just really felt seen, and then he recognized our band and was like, "Wait, what?" And then he wanted to like shoot our music video, and he was like, "Can I fly over? I'll do anything to like shoot your music video and stuff." And we were like, "Dude, of course! Like, come shoot our music video." And so he came. I had no idea how to like be a cinematographer at that point. I was just like, I think he came with an expectation of how he creates music videos, and I'm so used to just being so hands-on on everything. I was just like taking the camera at times, and then like the guitarist would take it at times. We were all just like making this, and he's like, "This is a really weird experience." But then we all kind of became friends through that, and then he had written a film that shot partially in New York, and I was moving to New York at the time. And then that's when things really started to change for me in like a narrative perspective. And I didn't know how to do lighting or anything at the time, but I had an understanding of like if I tilted a lamp a certain way on the desk, it would bounce off of this, and like started to understand it a bit. And then I really just started getting a craving for that. Started shooting a lot of short films for free in New York, just finding them any way that I could. And then eventually one of them won at a festival and also won Best Cinematography, and directors found me through those credits. That's a link they'll buy our mutual. And I owe so much to her, honestly. She brought me onto a film actor that ended up on HBO, and then I shot her personal film about growing up in Brownsville here in New York, and the challenges of growing up in a crime capital like that. And then we went on to shoot another film, and then now I'm working on a film with her right now. And so we've just really like gotten together, and so that's been really exciting. And there's a lot of other paths and things that happened to me, but I feel like that's like the clearest. Like
I think the overall Dustin kind of getting is like you took risks, you talked to people, and you just kind of put yourself out there and made things and got these out, and then this time went to.
Yeah, I think going back to what I was saying about the curiosity, like that's how I sum it up. It's just like everything was just because I was curious and I really wanted to do this thing, and it just seemed so cool, and like I just, like I had to find a way to make money and everything, but it was so like not what I was thinking about. But yeah, it was just the excitement is still like what gets me to set for those long hours, and everything that like my wife sitting here at the front row is like, why would you ever put yourself through this? And I just can't imagine another life, so still following that curiosity.
I'm still like blown away by what you said about the being read to in the morning, like that. Just or in general, it just touched me so deeply that I had to mention it. So for me, a lot of where I've gotten to has been luck.
And I don't mean luck like, oh, it was lucky, but like, you know, they say preparedness meets opportunity. And sometimes that's just, you know, when somebody asks you want to do something, saying yes. And other times that is having done the research or done the homework to be able to say yes and do it. So in high school, I was very lucky that my high school had a really large radio and television station, and I had no idea about it. I was a really clueless kid. And one day, one of my friends was going there, and the advisor was like, "Hey, what are you doing here?" I was like, "I don't know. Like, you're part of the TV station." Like, I guess I am. And so I got into that, and I learned all through after school activity, editing and videography and web design and radio disc jockeying and just all sorts of stuff in a very fun and social way. And to me, filmmaking and video and all that stuff became about making something together, like being able to work as a team and have this project that you can say, oh, look, it's the Bunny Barn, which was an actual thing. So that was really great. And then, you know, when it came time to apply to schools, it was like, oh, well, what do you want to do? And my guidance counselor said, well, why don't you do film? And I was like, oh, great. Because at the time, it had public access. And they were like, well, why don't you apply to NYU? Oh, sure. Sounds good. And then I got waitlisted, like, begged to get in, and I got in, and that was also great. But it was kind of like, you know, my grades were good enough that that I could apply to those schools and could also do the extracurriculars while still maintaining that. And then in college, I didn't really, you know, it's like for me, it was all about making something together. So I didn't really come in as like, I want to be a director, I do a producer, I'm an editor. I've done those things. So when it came time to make projects, I was just kind of like ready to go. So I would be, you know, I've been a camera person, I've been a producer, I've been an editor, I've been a lot of different things. And one thing about sound, it's a small department, not a lot of people want to do it. It's like, I will tell you, it's not hard, but, you know, when people talk about the different kinds of learners that you are, right? Visual learning or hands-on learning. There's very few people that are just like, oh, I can visualize what's going on in my head just by hearing it. Like, it's not a very common thing, or like you're interpreting all these dials and meters, and it's just like, oh yes, that means good sound. And you know, I had a reasonable technical background that I was able to gravitate to that easily enough. And so I just became, you know, the go-to person, one of like 3 people in my class, that was just like, oh, we need sound for our project. Will you do it? And I'm like, yeah, sure, I don't care. And so I literally was on set, you know, every weekend as much as possible, doing a lot of sound, and sometimes producing, and sometimes cinematography. And I got the job at Gotham, which is my second go-round to Gotham, on a field trip, where I actually had to leave early. And my teacher was like, hey, they're looking for a rental person. And I was like, sure. And then, you know, I was able to interview. Apparently I was the second choice, but whatever. That's just what they tell me. But I was able to interview, learn a ton about sound, be around for one of the most important changes of production audio, going from folks bring on tape, recording on hard drive and multi-track, and it's really like, I was there at the beginning training people from like, as a 21-year-old, training people from Law and Order. I've been doing this for like 35 years.
They stick their feet in, they're like, no.
Well, you know, I'll tell you a quick story about how it happened. So on SVU, one night, you know, they used to record on these reel tapes, right? So the reel, like, the forward magnetic tape goes through the record head and comes back, and it's take-up reel. And then you're supposed to immediately take the reel and put it in a box and never look at it again. So, as we talked about, like, on set, horrible, like, sometimes really long hours, you know, where you're doing 14 plus hours a day, overnight. By the time you get to, you know, Friday, you're exhausted. The sound mixer, who's fantastic at his job, had been doing it for so long, took the reel that had been recorded and flipped it over and recorded over it. No, right? So 13 minutes a take, or $40 million, or whatever that is, was just gone, right? And so Law and Order, and basically every production after that was just like, we have to go non-linear, right? And so that I was there during the moment. I trained that person, and they still recorded their backups on the reel-to-reel for a long time. But yeah, I mean, people, once you've had something that becomes so much more convenient, like being, it's hard to resist. So I was really lucky there. And while I was at Gotham, it's like I was young, had that stability, but so I was able to pursue other things. I did 48-hour film festival with friends. I was seeing commercials and shorts with friends, trying to get a little production company going. And so when it came time that some of my other friends who've been pursuing things other ways had been coordinators and producers, they were like, hey, I'm producing this movie. Do you want to come and do it? And I was like, sure. And so I would location manage, I would production coordinate. And that led to, so I left Gotham, and that led to a lot of freelance. Sound always make money. People who are terrified of sound would pay you money. So that's good.
And also bad sound, you let everything.
And bad sound, and we have to talk about this. It's fine, somebody always be writing, you need to send it then. I mean it's on recordings. But so, when I was able to pursue production and to get into things I didn't mention is that I produced 7 or 8 indie films, some of which have been at Sundance, some of which have been on TV, which has been fun. And, so much of that has been, being willing at being skilled enough at having the background, I learned accounting, right? So that I could do the New York Film and Tax Price, which was annoying, not that complicated, that you just have to have the willingness to learn, and you and people, I think, backwards. It's a very similar skill set at all. And then I came back to Gotham because I had a child, and I was working housewives, hip hop, 14 hours a day, and I'm singing 2 hours a day. Then I wanted the stability. And I think the thing that I've realized, all of this, right, is the luck, it's the preparation, it's the opportunity, but then it's also seeing how to be a real communicator, being able to express your ideas and your wants and your needs, whether it's what you want overall as a team, or for your department, advocate for sound, or put your ideas creatively in an engaging manner that helps people. So whenever we have a problem with sound on set, there's the kind of this stereotypical idea of a sound person in the corner that's just it was bad, I hate it. And either they're really miserly and kvetching about it but keeping it to themselves, or they're screaming plane, plane, plane. But the way to do it is, in my mind, is to have a conversation with the director and be like, hey, that wasn't great for sound, come and do it again. Here's why. And a lot of showrunner and sound director, they know, right? Fixing in post, that's silly. But if you're not working with somebody who's it's being able to advise them in a way that educates them and lets them choose, because there may very well be a reason not to do it. Right, there may be some kind of time constraint that you don't know about, but at least you've communicated about it. Hopefully you write it down so there's evidence if you get in trouble later. But you've communicated about it in a kind and respectful manner, so that
CYA.
so that you can so that you can have that working relationship with the person and not have it be adversarial. And I think like that's those two things, like preparedness and your ability to communicate about your craft. That would be, those are my advices.
I'm my staffer. Wow.
You go back and see your production nightmare. None of those happen to me, but that's what just like frightened of production, you know. Wow, I should have been prepping when I was going to say all throughout this whole team. But, I'll just kind of say this. I grew up in New York. I'm a native New Yorker. Very rare, I know. I think a lot of my career was like spiritual guidance. Somebody up there was like, I know you want to be in this industry. You don't know how, so I'm going to try and help you as best I can. Okay, I'm going to do a few bullet points. I graduated from high school. I did not want to go to college. I wanted to study acting and work. And my father, who at the time was a police detective, somebody on my PD, was like, yeah, you go to college. So, I went to college. But I'll preface this to say, while I was in high school, well, I think I was in the last grade, maybe when Star Wars came out. When Star Wars came out, I don't know about anybody else, but to my generation, some people who had somewhat of an interest in being in the industry, and that's sort of, I think, a lot of people saw what they wanted to do. So for me, I mean, when I got home after seeing it, I said to my mom, who hires these people in the background? Because they were horrible. I watched Star Wars a number of times. And she's like, I think it's a casting director. And so from then on, I would watch the credits and see who the casting director was, for no other reason than I was curious. Okay. So I went to college. I was the first person in my family to go to college. The way they got me to go to college, my elder said, well, I've always had to go to college, so I'm going to apply in college too. And I was like, she can't do that to me. So we both applied, and I ended up with college going away as far away as I could get. And she ended up going to Columbia. I came out of college, and I didn't know what the hell I was going to do. I went to the industry. There was no one in my family in the industry. I didn't know anybody. So I got called to jury duty. My dad said to me, when you go there, you know, take your resume. It's like, talk to as many people as you can. Tell them that you're just graduating and looking for a job. I talked to people there because that's just what I did. I like to talk to strangers. It's very strange. And
I think that's a very New Yorker thing, though.
I think it is. Somebody had posted it on Facebook. They had a conversation. Anyway, in my jury box was a producer from Sesame Street. Yeah. And I tell this story because it's true, and I want you to know that I'm impressed by all of these people. And they had a goal in mind, and we met it, and you were able to go through it. But sometimes I think some things just come to you through the gods. And she asked me a ton of questions about myself. And we were the only two who went out for drinks after the case was over. And we became friends. And she called me a few months later and she said, look, I know you've worked with kids like since age 14. There's this casting assistant position open at Sesame Street. I can't get it for you, but I can tell them that you're interested in interviewing. And I said, okay. So I submitted my resume. I went through a battery of interviews. I think it was at the second one, they were like, oh, by the way, you have to have your college degree. So I was like, thank God. Yeah. And my last interview was Louise signed up, and she called me like the day after and said, got the job. So I think during that it's kind of a blur because I didn't know Sesame Street was still on air. I had no clue.
But you would now?
No, I know. I know. But at that age, I think I was 21. I had graduated early, but I had no idea. And it was a great training ground. As I was saying to some people at lunch today, I said it was the heyday. Money wasn't an issue. For the people who were like, yeah, it was an issue, just didn't know. But I did that job for a year. I was on a contract, and my contract ended. And they were like, well, see you next season. And I said, okay. And I thought, what the hell am I going to do now? I hadn't even planned anything. And my mother said, you know, you should really experiment and try all kinds of new things. And I thought I hadn't done an internship with college. because it wasn't a requirement. So I signed up for an internship at CNN in Atlanta, and I got it. I went down to Atlanta, found a place to live, and was working on Larry King Live, a show called Crossfire at the time. And that's where you learn, that's where I learned I don't want to do this. You know, but again, I say that God's must be with me, because the first day I was, you know, calling my mom on a payphone, and she said, how's it going? And I said, it's going okay, but I haven't seen Ted Turner, and here he comes down the escalator with some beautiful blonde, and he's wearing a fur coat, and I'm like, I'm staying. You know, I learned that he didn't want to do news. Maybe if I had been somewhere else, I probably would have said yes, but it was very hectic at the time. You know, things were going on in Ireland. All kinds of things were happening. You were seeing these raw footage being downloaded there, and it was hard. So anyway, we signed a call me again and said, are you coming back? And I said, yes. And I got back, and sure enough, when I got there, they were like, well, you're getting promoted. We want you to run the children's casting department. So I said, yes. It was great. I got to travel all around the city, you know, looking for kids. At the time, they were looking for kids who were not very polished. But as I was working on the show, things changed, and we decided it was going to be 50-50. Half just regular kids, half kids from the talent agency. Then they were like, we wanted to start giving kids more lines and have them be principals, you know. So Astoria announced she's having a baby, and I'm like, great! I need to hire a series of babies now. And I got a good training ground. Somewhere in the middle of that, I got tired of casting and switched to being a production associate in the control room. I had no idea what went on in the control room. It's always out on the floor, and you hear everybody with the headsets, and they're talking, and we've been looking at you like, you know, like, what did I do? You know, I don't know. But I went into the control room and decided I don't want to be in the control room. But I did that for a year. It was a good training ground. Our job is to, you know, take all the edit notes for the editor, build the show, build a rundown for the show. We get the curriculum sheet, blah, blah, and go on the lights and do the same thing. Casting looked up again, and I said, I'm birth back. And they go, thank God. So I did that, and I noticed a lot of the writers would come to me and ask me what kids are watching on television now. For some reason, they seemed to think I knew, and I did know, because, you know, by that point, I had interviewed like 2,000 kids, and the icebreaker for me with young kids was to say, what do you watch on television and why? Mm-hmm. And by that time, I knew, you know, Cartoon Network at the time was like, but in my mind, I said, I can treat shows like that. I can do that. And we didn't have a development department at the time, and I'm working there. I'm showing my age now, okay? But Dolores Morris, still independent to the company, she eventually went on to HBO to start HBO Kids, but she put out the call out to the employees and said, we're taking pictures. I didn't even know what that was. But I asked my producer friends who worked outside, and said, oh, this is your chance. You can picture our idea. And I said, well, I don't know how to even construct a proposal or anything. And they walked me through that, and I submitted it. They called me down. I pitched it. It was a horrible pitch. Horrible. And I say that because for those of you who are going to go up pitching, please don't expect to be Dallas Strawberry from the get-go. It's just not going to, you know. I'm not wishing this on you by any means, but pitching is hard. And I said, I like that, even though it was like going down a train. So I was like, I really like that.
Well, you have to be bad before you get hurt.
You gotta be bad before you're gonna be good, for sure. And I decided I wanted to work in development, but it couldn't be there because they only had 2 people in the department. So I asked my friends again outside, how do I get a job? They said, well, you should go to a small company. Because that way you'll get promoted and you'll learn a lot. You know, you won't be just a number working at, you know. They would have said Nickelodeon, but Nickelodeon had just started. Oh my God! Okay. So, I'm about to cry because this is hard for me. But by chance, God's again, I was in my office at Kaufman. They had moved out here by then. And my coworker, Morrissey Gardner, who now is an executive producer at GBH, they've worked out wombats and everything.
we were looking at a paper and I saw an article about a children's multimedia company that was starting. It was pre-launched by journalist P. Steyer, who has since then created Common Sense Media. And I thought, this is a job for me. I sent a resume in, went for an interview for a development assistant position, and I didn't hear anything. So I was in my office preparing for the next season, and Dolores Morris showed up at my door and she said, we want to option your idea. And just then, the phone rang, and it was that company. He said, we want to offer you the job. So I took the job. That was a hard decision because this is when you know the highs and the lows. I wasn't even going to be making a third of what I was making at Sesame Street. Like, this was going to be, I was going to be peanut butter and jelly. But, you know, I was in a place where people stayed for life, and that's not an exaggeration. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I think if you're enjoying your job and you want to be there and you're taking it all in, you should stay. But I didn't want to stay. I wanted to get out of preschool and target an older audience, so I left. And I went to this company and was working with a lot of talented people like Liz Neal, and eventually went back to Sesame Mitchell as a creative director. And you can thank her for asking Cadabby because she shook the house and was like, we need more female puppets. I learned a great deal. I was there for 4 years. After the first year, I got promoted to associate director of development in the New York office. And then we followed it after a while. They asked me if I wanted to move to Los Angeles because they're closing the new left office. I said, no. It's like, no, I don't know, really Los Angeles. I assumed it was going to be easy to find another job in development. But what I learned is, and I think that still stands true today, this is an odd job. And, you know, it's very rare that you'll open up a paper and they'll say, looking for a development executive. You know, it's like this really small community, and it's even smaller in children's media. And I left and didn't find another position. It's really difficult. So I said, okay, I guess this is it. I've always had religious in music. I think I'm going to do that. You know, refer to my producer friends. They gave me more good advice. They were like, you know what, if you want to do that, you should go to a temp agency that works with the likely place you in there, and then you'll get hired. So that's what I did. And I was placed at Sony Music. And the head of HR was like, what do you want to do? I said, I don't know. She said, you seem like an A&R person to me. And I was like, I don't know. I didn't even know what it stood for at the time, but now I do. And she said, I'm going to position you working with the head of distribution. You'll learn a lot there. You see how the titles go by, you understand how things are priced. And the minute I got there, my supervisor said, Gab, the minute you can go back at children's television, you should do that immediately. Music is dying. And, you know, I don't know what's going to happen. He was right. You know, it was a really big thing. I mean, Napster had come and gone, but it hadn't done its damage. And I took his advice. I stayed there for a little while because they have the most amazing benefits ever. And I would go to kids' screening conference and still go to, you know, meetups and things and make sure that I wasn't forgotten. And at kids' screen, I actually ran into Amy Freeman, who worked at Nickelodeon for years, and told her that I wanted to pitch something. I think that's how it happened. Anyway, they said they'd take our pitch. I got horribly sick that day. I co-wrote it with another friend of mine who went and pitched it, and they really liked it. Let me just also say at this time, when I was at Sesame Street, I was introduced to Ellen Doherty, who is the chief creative officer now at Fred Rogers. She was the roommate of a friend of my coworker, and we just became fast friends. So all during this journey I'm describing, she's working at Reading Rainbow, and then she's moving on to other things, and she's unemployed, I'm unemployed, she's working. So, yeah, we decided at some point when I left Sesame Street to start a listserv where we would post articles for people who work in children's media. It's called Media Pros.
This was the most widely read when I joined Sesame Workshop, by far.
Really? Oh, that's good to know. Oh, it was the early days of the internet, and we were on Yahoo groups. And it wasn't until one day Brown and Johnson's name flew by, and I thought, I pulled out and said, oh my God, that Robert Johnson's on this list. Did you know that? She said, no, let's redo it again. So we did. But anyway, Amy called me. They passed on our project that my co-writer wrote, but they did later ask me if I wanted to come in for an interview to work in the development department, and I said yes. And I got hired there as a development executive for the N Network, which was on a digital cable arm that went TV networks, and they did shows like Degrassi, The Next Generation, and South of Pole, and a whole bunch of things. I didn't imagine I'd ever work in a network, and I think it was hard for me because the only people I had to speak to about my experience were the people that I worked with. And just a side note, I was probably usually the only African American in the room. Although when I got to the end, I was happy to see that there was some diversity. You know, Amy pushed for that, and that was a good thing. But on the outside, I didn't have friends that worked in this industry. And one of the pieces of advice I had to give you is this, you know, if you want a person of color, my advice to you is make shows getting people of color, or, you know, if you're LGBT, and you'll please reach out to your friends in this industry so that you will have someone she needs as a sounding board, and even vice versa. It was a learning experience for me being at a network, but I learned after 4 years I was there, so I'm like, oh, I just, you know, it was hard, but I learned so much. I learned so much about development, and what made me decide to not work at the network again is that it was hard. You just knew that the chances of people having their show picked up, well, you know, it's just going to be, but you know, it's against you, the percentage. And I wanted to be on the other side of the table. But 2008 hit, and we were all out of the job. So that was the roughest time. I tell people that, you know, Obama going to the office was one of the best and worst times of my life. Because he came up with health care. Thank you for that. Because when I got fired or let go, I broke my ankle. I had a cast for 18 months, and that health care just took care of things. But it was very hard to find a job. And I decided to consult. She's right. You know, you're right. You got consulting coming up with reality business. I had people who were that I worked in development, writers, producers, other companies who like, would you mind taking pictures on our behalf because we're overloaded, or would you mind working with this writer? We're having trouble with the show Bible. All kinds of things were thrown my way. And just bullet points, I did that. I taught screenwriting. I expressed an interest in podcasting, started podcasting independently with Kia Riddick Taylor, who was a former casting director from Nickelodeon. I did a series of things, and things sort of sprouted out of that. I mean, because I was podcasting in like 2011, nobody was except for, you know, white guys in the Midwest. And that's what you did podcasting on TV in 2006. Really? Yeah. And I remember the Apple guy came in to talk to our group, and he was like, it's really bad. Well, let's give you some information. I went to Apple to take like GarageBand, and I was like, listen, my co-host is in Florida, and I'm in, New Jersey. How do I connect us, and what should I use to record us? And he was like, we don't help you with that. And I was like, okay, no, whatever, man. I figured it out. But what happened later on is that they started a fellowship at IFP for people who are interested in podcasting. The mayor's office commissioned this big study, and they discovered that podcasters that were known at that time were being stolen from New York. It's like, they can't do that. So I got a fellowship out of it. Somewhere in between that, Ellen told me that she was moving to Pittsburgh to work for Rogers Productions, and I was like, I didn't even know for Rogers Productions. I didn't know that they were in business, you know. All I knew was that Fred Rogers was off the air. I loved him. And as I said during lunch, I watched him way beyond the target age because he brought me comfort, he brought all the feels. And I said to her, I'll never see you again. She's like, yeah, you know, I'll come into, city lights along. She came in a lot. Being selfish New Yorker, I think Pittsburgh, that's like Midwest. It's a 40-minute flight. Yeah. So, She called me a little while later to ask me if I would work on a contract to review submissions to the company. And I did that, and eventually she turned to me and said, let's just make this permanent. Let's just do it. And I was like, Dr. Linda, what work? And she said, no. So, who knows? I may end up in Pittsburgh one day. It's a nice town. I'm still learning about it. You know, I've been on there often, and they moved to a great new office, and I like it. I really like it. And I tell people that it's the best company I've ever worked for, hands down. Yeah, it's the best company I've ever worked for. What can I tell you about working development with Vice? It's choppy. You should take as many writing courses as you can. You really need to understand story and the story structure. See as many films as you can. You know, I always just joke, I say, if you want to find a really good development executive, you know, hire a latchkey kid from the 70s, because they were watching TV like it was nobody's business. And I was yeah, that's the drawback for me. I watched so much television, my parents took the cord from the telling their and I found it, and I come after school and watch, and then I hear them coming, pull it out. Yes. Mom, forgive me.
If it was hot?
Yes.
I got hit a lot because the TV
You're
was
like
hot when
fanning
I
it so it wouldn't be hot. But I watched a great deal of television, and it has helped me since then, because I can refer to a lot of things. And then on the internet, can watch tons of shows like the internet. I can't believe you're an internet icon. But watch as many shows as you can. Read as many scripts as you can, and don't lock yourself into a box. Even if you want to work in development, try and take on other things in the industry so that you're not just one mode. Yeah,
I'm very cool.
Okay.
We're coming near the end, so but I want to hear first room.
I'd be very. No, actually, my mom's in the audience. So I say that because I'm first generation American, and when you're first generation, you have to be a lawyer, you have to be a doctor, or something professional like that. And as a kid, I was like, yep, I'm gonna be a lawyer. That's what I'm gonna be. But I love the arts. I loved music. I loved painting. I was always drawn to that. And I quit college. And I was like in between. 9/11 had happened. And I didn't know what to do. And for extra money, a friend of a friend was looking for an assistant on an indie film for a makeup artist. I would do my own makeup, but I was never allowed to wear makeup when I was whatever. And so when I went to set, I fell in love with this industry. I couldn't believe just the cameras, that the chaos of it all was, I always say it was my aha moment. And after that moment, I was like, this is what I want to do. And that was like 21 years ago now that I started assisting, and I started doing all kinds of odd jobs just so that I can support wanting to become a makeup artist in this industry, because as a lot of people have mentioned, you don't do this for the money right away, right? It's a hustle, right? You do one job, and you may do it for free. You may do it for, I remember doing things for like $100, working a week. But you just build your resume, you make the connections that you make. And and here I am. And just to make it short, I like, my advice would be, make connections, as it was said before. Make connections, ask questions. Diversity, as Gabrielle mentioned, it's super important, and this is why, one of the reasons why I love this Astoria Film Festival.
Ruth's one of our board members.
Yes,
And I love that Nina brought me onto this because I am a huge advocate of diversity in this industry. I didn't know about the union. I didn't know that you can even have health insurance. This wasn't something that I ever thought as a career. And I remember my parents being super upset when I quit college and wanted to do something in arts or, and I didn't have the guidance. And my mission always is to tell people, like even in my neighborhood, to my own friends, this is something my friends now have children. I'm like, if you ever want to be in the film industry, ask me. You can do this, you can do that. It may not be easy at first, but I can help guide you. I can help open the doors because it was very hard for me in the beginning to find people like me in this field. And it's got better. I love Dora the Explorer. Sesame Street, we have lunch a little earlier before they was with several people that work with Sesame Street. And Sesame Street is, I would go up watching it and I remember seeing Latinos and Blacks on TV. And I'm 44 years old, and I think the impact that had for me as a kid it's just very important. Sorry.
Yeah, it's so important to see yourself represented.
Exactly.
It helps you imagine yourself in that position,
Right.
and then it also helps other people see people like you in that position, which is super important.
And when I into it,
I remember, wasn't there that show 24 had a black president, and that was way before the Obama era. And I remember some people say, speaking, why would they have a? And I was like, why wouldn't they have a president? But it was still that was not so long ago, and. I think you have to put those images out there so that they get into people's brains, so that they stop just regurgitating the same image of what life should be like.
Yeah, and don't put yourself in a box. Like it's also been mentioned. You can do so much. As a makeup artist, I want to also do other things I want to produce. There's other things I want to do. Right, like I want to do so much more, and certain people will look at you and just see you as. She's just a hairstylist, so she's just a yoga artist, so he's just this. No, we're in this field, we're in this industry because we also want to tell our stories. So don't let anyone put you in that box. And find your people, find your tribe, because if someone tells you no, you know what, you can do it yourself. That's it.
There are no excuses. I say, what's your one line of advice if you go down, to everybody? Quick one-liner of advice to everybody. You just said it. Don't let people put you in a box.
Yeah, don't let no one put you in a box. And like I said, find your tribe. There's so many people like yourself that want to do the same thing. And ask questions, I would say.
I'll tap on what you did say. Please don't wait around for someone to say you with those stars in your eyes. I'm going to take you away. Don't do it. Start writing. Start filming. Start editing. Start directing. Do not wait for someone to give you permission to make you feel legitimate. You're at a time with YouTube and a whole bunch of things. Just get started. Go to jury.
For me, I just watched Finding Nemo again a couple of days ago, so I think just keep swimming.
I say that all the time.
Yeah, just keep swimming, just keep going.
I say that all the time. I
Sitting on your couch.
I send that gift after people would be like, how's it going with Frmr Festival? I'm like,
that's it, right? Just keep going for the minute that you stop. You stop going, you're stopped.
Like a short.
I guess I'm repeating what I said before, which is just to follow your curiosity, which also goes to not being put in a box and not waiting for somebody to hinge. But it can sound intimidating to have to do everything yourself. But if you're doing it because you're curious, it's really easy.
Well, that was a good thing.
I'm going to start with the not fun advice. Show up on time, or even better, 15 minutes early. But I also love finding the pride, because it's like, there's this big, like, what is networking, or how do you meet these people? They're your classmates in high school. They're your classmates in college, and those are the people you're going to make some projects with, and just, finding your passion, but also building your friend. Yes, me too.
I have a tool. You have to network a lot, and you have to be serious about networking, and you have to do the work, and you like work to network. There's a lot of internships that you would take advantage of. I speak about kids in particularly animation. There's one at Sicily, there's one at Fred Rogers, there's others that are actually internships. Look into them. I actually created a resource list, and I have a QR code if you want. There's like 7 there that I can scan my phone and go see. Get a mentor. There's the mentorship program, and if you're interested, Showrunner Media Association has a mentorship program. I have one my comes this year. These people, basically my main function as a mentor for these folks is to connect with other people. I told them, like, that's what you want from me, is for me to connect you with other people. So go talk to other people, even if you're not a networker. Naturally, like, just force yourself to do it. Get 3 names from each person that you talk to, and try to really get in touch with those 3 folks. And for that goes my second piece of advice, which is create your elevator pitch on yourself. Like, what do you want people to know about yourself? You can have 2 or 3 depends on the situation. You might want to be pitching an idea, but you always want to sort of be pitching yourself with all these skills that you have. And what's your passion? And going back to the network, what's the kind of content that you like? And let that drive sort of how you speak about yourself. But be ready to speak about yourself. Be ready to share a little bit more of your personal story, because we're very interested in personal stories, I feel. Because we care a lot about diversity and what makes you you and you. So you have to be prepared to speak about that in these networking events that you're going to go to. And that would be my practical advice. More practical advice, speaking of networking, there's a great group called the Tano Network. You can look it up online. They are there to support underrepresented filmmakers. Soon to join, they Tano Network, and they have mentorship groups. They have a great jobs board. You could volunteer to start as your free PA thing, or to start meeting people to work your way up and get jobs, home, the system, or working. You just ring somebody on the network and say, hey, can I follow you on your job? And they're all into it, because that's the whole purpose of the pandemic one, is to support underrepresented filmmakers. That's mighty not setting off that part. Which is very advanced at the truth in our industry, and in Harvard. But yes, don't be afraid to ask questions and meet people, and you'll see that people really do want to help other people. They really do. So if you're a shy person, try not to be shy, but join the panel network, find an internship, ping people on LinkedIn, make a great LinkedIn page for yourself, and pay them seat. And I tell all of us, I bother everybody. And make your own content. Keep writing, keep making films, keep doing that. And my advice for that is start a group. Start an accountability group to meet once a month and share pages, share pages, share content that you're making. And if you do that every single month, you'll start doing it. You won't just let it go by the wayside without a heart attack. You try to write Hamilton, and
some big practice. Following a dream, passionate thing, life ferocious and strive tireless, but above all things, deep. I think it's smooth. Yes, but thank you.
It's so interesting. Thank you so much, everybody. I can't thank you enough.